Good afternoon. It's Monday, the 27th of October, 2025, just after 1 o'clock. Welcome to UK Column News. I'm your host, Mike Robinson, and my co-host in the studio today is Ben Rubin. Welcome to the program, Ben.
Thanks, Mike.
And joining us by video link are Sandi Adams and Diane Rasmussen. Now, later in the program, Diane's going to be covering attempts to change behaviours in one UK council, and she'll be talking quite a bit about Magna Carta later on as well. Sandi is going to be reporting on the World Heritage event in Glastonbury and protest over data centres in Merseyside. Ben's going to be covering more protests this time with UKIP. But we're going to begin with AI and its continuing rollout into government, Ben.
Indeed we are, yes. Hello, everybody. Artificial intelligence. What could possibly go wrong? We're going to migrate all of government to a new technological paradigm. It's completely experimental. All core functions of major government departments are now going to be run on these new algorithmic systems built by multinational corporations, owned by unaccountable billionaires with zero loyalty to the British people. Who better to lead the charge than David Lammy? Let's have a listen.
We're at a new technological frontier, one that will transform how government delivers for you. In our justice system, we're already seeing what's possible. AI is helping our probation officers spend less time on paperwork and more time working directly with offenders to cut crime and protect communities.
It saves me hours of typing case notes and reports, allowing me to focus on what really matters, which are supporting my team and managing risks.
I'm announcing that we're expanding this technology to 1,000 more probation officers across the country. This is AI enabling us to be more human, not less, handling routine tasks so people can focus on what humans can do.
AI is one of the most powerful tools governments have to modernize public services, to make them faster, easier, and more reliable. That starts with giving public servants the best AI tools, built with strong privacy and safety guardrails to help government work better for everyone.
The Ministry of Justice is expected to save up to 240,000 days of valuable time every year, allowing staff to spend more time monitoring offenders and keeping our streets safe. There's a global race to lead on AI. We're determined to win it for jobs, for growth, a justice system that truly works for everyone.
A global race for AI. Who decides that we're in a race? How does that happen?
They decided for themselves. They're running this race. Nobody else particularly wants to be involved in it. It seems like a slippery slope to me, Ben.
It certainly does, yeah. So, but they're at it. They're implementing this stuff. They're running experiments at the moment, right? But this is absolutely coming. So what's Lammy just described there? They've put this into the probation service. They're using it for case notes. So essentially, conversations between probation officers and people who are going out onto probation are being recorded by this system, and then that's being annotated and that's being presented as something that is positive for society. Whereas actually what we're ending up with is really quite important interactions, really crucial interactions with people who are going back into society are actually being handled by an algorithmic system. And there's no control here, as far as I can tell, about what's being put into the system, how it's then being interpreted, and also what's going on with that information in the background, right? And this is just a microcosm. They've talked about expanding this out to 1,000 more case officers across the probation system. Apparently that's going to save 240,000 days a year. And the whole thing's presented almost as an advert for OpenAI and by extension for Microsoft. I mean, that came from Lammy's personal Twitter page, X page, and he's up there speaking as a joint representative of this initiative with the chief commercial officer of OpenAI. It's almost like the British government are kind of in joint enterprise here with this multinational corporation. And of course, you know, it's not like there's anything particularly bad going on at the Ministry of Justice at the moment. I mean, let's not forget last week that Hadush Kabatu, the illegal immigrant who triggered the Epping protests, who sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl in Essex just 8 days after he crossed the Channel, was sent down for 12 months and then accidentally released from prison, at which point a manhunt then ensues around central London, and he's seen walking around McDonald's in Dalston, not far from where I used to live. Right. So, the people that have done this are the people that are implementing these new technological systems. And obviously, by the way, Lammy was quick to jump all over that after the gentleman was apprehended again, basically saying that he's going to be deported this week, assuming that they can still locate him when it comes around to that needing to happen. But this isn't just the Justice Department. This is the whole of government. So they've been running this trial since the end of last year. You can see here a report talking about the Microsoft 365 Copilot experiment, which has been running across 20,000 civil servants in DWP, HMRC, the Home Office, Ministry of Justice, as we just talked about, plus a bunch of other government departments, DEFRA, ONS, Companies House. And apparently this is all about task completion, efficiency, user satisfaction, and nothing whatsoever to do with centralisation of power and extraction of profit, which is ultimately the end point of all of this. Importantly, particularly in the context of what we just heard about in terms of the probation service, one of the things that came out of this report is that in sensitive areas like grievance handling or performance evaluations, there is a lot of concern about the accuracy of the outputs. And any errors could lead to reputational risk. So I think that probably plays directly into this thing with the probation service, right? If you're having conversations with a prisoner about going back into society, and that conversation is being inaccurately recorded and analysed by the system, then that could deliver severe reputational risks, and not just reputational risks, public safety risks, right? And that's already been identified in the trial. But apparently no one's particularly interested in that, and they're continuing to roll this whole thing out. In fact, this has now become the single issue for the civil service. We can see here the One Big Thing 2025 program, which is now live. So the One Big Thing, which runs from October until February next year, is about civil servants learning to use AI confidently and responsibly and applying it to the work that they do, which is all about apparently helping us be more efficient and effective as we deliver for citizens, even though that doesn't appear to be the outcome of this. Who's pushing this into the system? So BI, Behavioural Insights team, absolutely front and centre in this. They released a kind of a blockbuster report, actually. I mean, the amount of work that has gone into this, the AI and human behaviour report, where they look at augmentation, adaptation, alignment, and adaptation inside companies and government departments. We'll put a link to this, like really in some ways a phenomenal piece of work until you really begin to understand what it is that they're trying to achieve with it. They've developed this process that they're taking organisations through, which is about moving from no adoption on the left-hand side there in the centre to deep adoption on the right-hand side, and helping people to build motivation, trust and capability to migrate along this journey, essentially overcoming threats to things like competence, relevance and identity, right? So this is about manipulation and coercion into engagement with this new technology, and overcoming questions like, why am I making myself redundant? Which is probably what a lot of people are asking as this stuff is being rolled out. Now, that report has come from this fella, Michael Haldsworth, PhD, who's the chief behavioural scientist at the Behavioural Insights team, still basically not directly owned by the British government, but essentially operating as a kind of non-governmental organisation as part of Nesta, as we talk about them pretty much every week. Certainly I do. And this guy actually was one of the original co-authors of the Mindspace document, right? So the original document that came out in 2010, which was the precursor to the Behavioural Insights team in the Nudge unit, developed in the Cabinet Office underneath David Cameron, obviously working closely with David Halpern, who's still the president, I believe, emeritus of the Behavioural Insights team. And this guy's new book, entertainingly, is called The Hypocrisy Trap, which apparently means he's telling us that we need to rethink hypocrisy, and that will improve our relationships.
What, just by being more hypocritical?
Well, you just can't be too judgmental on this stuff, Right, these are the people pushing this stuff out into the system, and it's not just Behavioural Insights team and UK government. This is the whole what do they call it? Civil society, charitable foundation, tech entrepreneur, tech visionary paradigm is pushing this thing forward. Let's have a look at Omajar Network. They're talking about envisioning a future where our shared humanity steers our digital future. And they introduced this term recently, which is about hardwiring humanity to the grid. Yeah, think about that. They want to hardwire us to the digital control grid, starting in government, but then absolutely rapidly moving across the rest of society as well. And this stuff is dangerous. I'm going to be completely upfront with you. And we know it already, not least because of its provenance and where it's come from. But, this report issued by MIT earlier on this year talks about this idea of cognitive debt and the fact that in their controlled trial, people who were using AI performed worse than their counterparts at all levels. Yeah, so this is destroying people's minds. Right, and it's being pushed into the education system. The whole thing's also built on fraud as well, pretty much, right? So they're certainly playing fast and loose with intellectual property legislation. OpenAI submitted some evidence to the Lords Communications and Digital Committee earlier on this year, I think it was. Actually, no, it was start of last year, start of 24. And they were asked if they could explain their position on the use of copyrighted material. And they said, well, it would be impossible to train today's leading AI models without using copyright materials, which they haven't paid for, right? So essentially, they've ignored the law. Let's just say that. And actually, this entire thing, this entire industrial paradigm is becoming extraordinarily confusing financially, right? So they've introduced this term of what they're calling a circular economy, which is this phenomenon where you have a tiny handful of dominant companies who are basically engineering a new technological and financial system that everything in our society is going to run on. And they're blurring the lines between a customer, a supplier, and a partner. So we can see that NVIDIA announced back in September that it was going to invest $100 billion in OpenAI. And NVIDIA make the microchips that this stuff runs on. OpenAI is the organization that builds the AI models and that David Lammy is introducing into the government, amongst others. NVIDIA announced an investment of $100 billion into OpenAI. And in exchange, OpenAI committed to building 10 gigawatts of data center capacity. So basically, we'll give you some money, but then you give it straight back to us. Mm-hmm. And then we present this as turnover and economic activity, but it's not. It's this kind of closed loop of people just shuffling money around between themselves. It really doesn't make any sense at all. And that's just one example out of this diagram. And this came from Bloomberg. There's a lot of people talking about this at the moment. My view is that the circular economy is really just a way of saying this is basically an elaborate scam. And this completely takes us immediately straight back into this territory, because Microsoft, who are at the center of this, are a strategic partner of the World Economic Forum. The organizations on that chart that we can see here that aren't World Economic Forum partners are largely owned by organizations like BlackRock, who owns 8% of NVIDIA. And actually, I suppose none of this should really be a surprise, because our justice system, as of 2019, based on this program, AI Advisory Group, established by Lord Burnett of Malden, who was the Lord Chief Justice at the time, was set up alongside a bunch of other senior judges, but also a lady called Kate Birth Butterfield, who is the head of AI and machine learning at the World Economic Forum. So this has been engineered for at least 6 years now, and this is what our government is being migrated onto.
This is going to be a big topic during UK Column News Extra, I have no doubt. Diane, let's welcome you onto the programme. And one council in the UK has been having interesting conversations, including about behaviour. So let's hear what you think about that, or what's been going on.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, and hello, Ben and Sandi, and to everyone watching today. It's great to be here. I attended a Durham County Council meeting last week on the 22nd of October. Because it's the council where I live now currently. And there have been some interesting things going on in this council, largely because there's a very large majority of Reform Party local councillors who really do seem to be doing the best they can for their local residents. And so I wanted to cover a little bit about what happened in some of the two main points of the meeting. And one is about freedom of expression in the council, and the other one is about Maya's Law, which is related to child safeguarding, which I will speak about a bit later. I wanted to credit We the People Northeast, the Rumble channel that I work with up here locally. They have recorded a large portion of the council, which is now available on the Rumble channel. And this will be available if you want to watch the full video in the show notes, as well as the entire council meeting, which is available on YouTube directly from the council. But what I would like to talk about first is the amendment to the Code of Conduct based on freedom of expression. And the amendment has to do with relating to Human Rights Act 1998, Article 10, and saying that basically that any member of the council has the right to say what they want to say based in speeches or in writing and on social media, and that this is a proposal to amend the member code of conduct to include specific reference to members' rights to freedom of expression. So first, let's hear how they announced this item in the agenda.
The report sets out the legal basis for freedom of expression under Article 10 of the European Convention of Human Rights and the Human Rights Act 1998, and in particular the right for individuals to express their views through public protest and demonstrations, published articles, books, leaflets, television or radio broadcasting, works of art, the internet and social media.
So that's the item. And now I'd like to play a clip from Councillor Darren Grimes, who is the Deputy Leader of Durham County Council, who is Reform.
We need to actually get back to a sensible democratic debate where each of us recognise that we are ultimately accountable to our voters at the ballot box. If our voters find what any of us in this chamber have said on social media, in this chamber, wherever else, to be objectionable in any way, shape or form, they are absolutely free to do what is their right, their democratic right. You know, we wear this poppy to actually stand up and remember those who fought for us to actually be able to exercise that right. And that right says that if you don't like someone at the ballot box who is standing for election, you are able to boot them up the behind and tell them to get out, right? It's as simple as that. I am accountable to the people of County Durham through that ballot box. And long may that continue to be the case. But I'm afraid what we've seen actually since May is the weaponisation of the standards process. A weaponisation to actually bog people down who you disagree with vexatious complaint that says, I didn't like something you said. You know what I say to that? That's called life. You don't always agree with everything anyone says. I think you'll find that those of us on this side of the chamber disagreed vehemently when the Liberal Democrats stood up and said to a vote in which 17.4 million people took place, bollocks to Brexit. That was offensive to me. I didn't complain about any of the Liberal Democrats. I stood against them in an election, and we did quite well, actually. I wonder why that is. Could it be because there was obvious blatant contempt, evidence for the electorate? I would hazard a guess, my friends, that actually it played a real integral part in that process.
So in response to that, we have a reply from Councillor Amanda Hopgood, who is a leader of the Liberal Democrats here in County Durham. Let's hear what she had to say about what Darren said.
Councillor Hopgood.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think it's already been said, no one in here, I'm sure, would disagree with the principle of free speech. In reality, Chair, though, this amendment does nothing more than put into writing what is already considered when each complaint comes in. But what it is doing is publicly giving, in their view, some members the right to be aggressive and offensive, all in the name of politics. It won't reduce the number of complaints. It's already been confirmed by the monitoring officer that complaints will still have to be looked into, whether or not this passes or not. The only thing that will actually change the number of complaints, and therefore, up till now, £11,000 of wasted taxpayers' money, is the people being complained about changing their behaviour.
So her overall point being that just because we can say something in the chamber doesn't mean that we should do so. So then there was a bit of chaos that broke out after that. Let's see this final clip.
The dehumanisation that comes from opposition members who have the gall, the temerity to suggest that their record is completely unblemished in that regard. How dare you? How dare you? And I find it absolutely extraordinary that Councillor Shuttleworth, who stands up and frankly is aggressive in his tone and nature, can stand there and say that actually we on this side of the chamber have questions to answer. I would ask him to take a good hard look in the mirror. Ultimately, the Liberal Democrats, I believe, have shown their authoritarian streak here. The Liberal part of their name, long since forgotten. The Democrat part of their name, well, look no further than that Brexit vote. That's forgotten too. I think ultimately, the authoritarian streak is to call for censorship. I've noticed that the leader of the opposition stood up there and said, I need to change my behaviour. Do you know what that means, my friends? It means silence. It means censorship. What is liberal about that? The key tenets of liberalism were to tackle the values of the Enlightenment.
Just a moment. May I raise a point of personal reflection, clarification? I did not say that whatsoever. I did not infer that he had to stop putting posts on at all or silence them. The word silence never came out of my mouth when I spoke.
Thanks for the clarification. Councillor Grimes, Tony Donoghue, please. Thank you.
So, the change of behaviour. What could that mean in the context of speech, if not silence? I find that absolutely extraordinary.
Chair, do I have to say the same thing? I did not say silence. He can say it and twist it as many times as he wants, but I did not say he had to be silenced. I said it was a change of behaviour.
So, Mike, I don't know if you have anything to say about this change in behavior, but just to say that this amendment passed of 63 to 28 votes.
Okay, very good. No, I've got nothing particularly to add to that. But what is Maya's law then?
Maya's law is something that is in sort of supporting this little girl who was shaken to death in 2022 by her mother's boyfriend. The mother is now in prison. The BBC reported last week, unfortunately, that on the 15th of October, that Parliament turned down this law taking place, which is basically meant to help identify those who might be putting children at risk. It is also supported locally because the girl was in County Durham by Amanda Hopgood, who we just heard from, the Liberal Democrat, as well as Liz Twist, who is the Labour MP up here in the area. Unfortunately, however, what we found out when we heard from the Children's Minister, the Labour MP Josh McAllister, he said that he agrees that we need to change the law, and that is what we are undertaking. However, I do not believe that now would be the time to introduce a child risk disclosure scheme specifically, but many of the proposals are reflected in what the government is taking forward. So basically, he's saying it's not the time for child safeguarding against potentially dangerous people being around children. I did an interview with Councillor Kenny Hope, who is another Reform councillor here in County Durham on Maya's Law, who's been leading the effort to promote this in County Durham and around the country. So here's a short clip from that interview that I had with Kenny after the meeting on Tuesday.
All right. Hello, this is Diane Rasmussen with UK Column. Just watched a very long county council meeting with Councillor Kenny Hope present, of course. I wanted to talk to you in particular about Maya's Law, because I know that you've been doing a lot of work to get this law through. And if you could maybe tell the audience a little bit about what the law is for and what you want to do with it.
Yeah, so Maya's Law is strengthening safeguarding of children. Baby Maya was murdered by her mum's boyfriend several years ago. And it was a bit of a harrowing event. And if these safeguarding measures were in place then, that could have prevented Maya's death. Hence the reason why we at full council today are very, very strong in wanting to move forward, change our policies to help now in County Durham, our safeguarding policies within the county to further look after our children.
So just to say quickly, there is a petition that is available on the UK government website. It has just under 8,000 signatures Of course, we need even 10,000 to even get it looked at in Parliament. So this will be about disclosure and safeguarding for these at-risk children. And the link to sign the petition will be in the show notes. So everyone, please sign to help us get this passed. Thank you.
Okay, Dan, thank you very much for that. Sandi, let me welcome you to the programme. And well, we're heading off to Glastonbury again, where all the best Agenda 21, Agenda 2030 activity seems to happen. And where we're looking at World Heritage.
Indeed. I mean, it's been fun and games, actually. This last Saturday, on the 25th, Glastonbury Town Council held a consultation event regarding the ongoing scoping exercise for WHS status that the people haven't asked for, which has currently cost over £30,000 when they can't even maintain the public toilets here. So it's, the people aren't too happy about it. It was very poorly advertised. I've got a slide here to show you the makeshift board went up 45 minutes before and you can see they really spent a lot of money on that one. And there was another huge event happening at the same time in the town. And this wasn't a mistake, because it happened the same time last year. They were, the event was happening when there was a big event in the town. So they are actively discouraging people to attend. So we did our own internal advertising for it. And they were very shocked that so many people turned up, because they weren't expecting it and they didn't want it. We had the next slide is the consultants. We had two people speak on behalf of the contractors about local WHS bids that were successful to WHS. And that was the City of Bath and Avebury and Stonehenge. And there was a level of manipulation to try and get us to agree that it was a good idea, because they just really presented what they thought were the positive aspects. Now, it wasn't long before the 17 goals crept into the PowerPoint. And he was challenged by a resident about the links to the UN and the WEF, quite rightly. So let's hear how he tried to justify this. He was actually a really nice guy, but was a bit misinformed. There's this, we'll go straight to, there's a clip of a slide of the woman that this lady was presenting on behalf of WHS for the Avebury and Stonehenge, which has a lot of adverse reactions to what's happened at Avebury and Stonehenge with what's happened to the sacred sites there. So let's hear what this consultant has to say about what he believes. He's got the 17 goals there up on the screen, and he doesn't really get it. You listen to what he says. He's a lovely man, but sadly doesn't get it.
Know what the relationship is between the World Economic Forum and UNESCO is. I can speak to these. So we adopt the indicators and we respond to the indicators in the Sustainable Development Goals. So I'm going to say two, for example. One is about eradication of poverty. Now, how that influences how we campaign for new housing and developments is to ensure that, we campaign that developers ought to be creating more space for allotments and proper sized gardens so people have the ability to grow their own food. So that there is greater control over use of chemicals, over the availability of food, the affordability of food. That's a fundamental way for us to be able to influence, in a very direct way, how people can help to eradicate poverty. Which is why, we're not the only reason, I'm not proclaiming all of that, but Bath has got double the number of allotments per person who lives in Bath than the average in the UK. I'm not saying that's down to World Heritage, but it gives us a focus to be able to specifically look at those indicators and how those can be changed through our work.
However, the eradication of poverty through the World Economic Forum is the fact that none of us alone. We will have nothing.
Absolutely. I'm not here to disagree with you. My journey. Absolutely. So all I can say is I haven't got anybody coming into Bath telling me how to run my business, how to run the charity that I work for, what our campaigning priorities are. I don't have a group of people influencing what we should be saying and how we work and engage with people. That's self-determination. That's what we do as an independent charity. And we are facilitators to be independent because, like it or loathe it, the tourism is good enough in Bath to make our charity financially independent. So we are free of a voice about how we express ourselves. Now,
so he thinks he's autonomous, or the World Heritage Site or whatever is autonomous, but they are clearly not. So after the presentation, we were encouraged to discuss any issues with 3 different groups on round tables: the consultants, the council and the working party. And the public group, who'd been cherry-picked by the council. It's a form of gatekeeping. And this next slide is a warrior woman who stood up on a chair and refused the Delphi technique that they'd encourage us to participate in, which is where they put you on separate tables. And we were asking for a panel discussion, actually. Now, this lady in pink in the next slide was she's the deputy town clerk, became very, very irate, I have to say, saying it was their event and we must do as we're told. You don't tell people in Glastonbury to do as they're told. So we won the battle for a panel Q&A, and we had a heated discussion about the lack of transparency regarding unminuted secret meetings with lack of community engagement and a call for an open debate. Now, I did look at some of these slides. If we have the next slide up, within the presentation, I realised there was some very interesting slides, and following it up, one of them was the Sustainable Tourism Toolkit. And so I looked at this, and I've put everything in the show notes. It's really interesting to have a look at this because there is a rather darker agenda at play here. So I did some research, and this particular toolkit explains the collaboration of the UN and the WF in the transformation of tourism under the 17 Sustainable Goals with the United Nations World Tourist Organization, who have this sort of logo with tourism at the heart of the 17 goals. Now, the next slide is how in this document, which is the UN tourism document, how they are using goal 12, 14 and 8 to promote this. And they've put addendums to these 3 goals. So, for instance, Target 8, they've put it Target 8.9, devise and implement policies to promote sustainable tourism that creates jobs and promotes local culture and products. And then also SDG 12.B, develop and implement tools to monitor sustainable development impacts for sustainable tourism. So if we then go on to the next slide. Now, I looked at this. This is the UN Tourism's digital transformation under the 17 goals, and it, once inscribed, basically, the World Heritage status becomes a subject to international oversight by UNESCO and its partner bodies. So local control is kind of eroded, and they take control, really. Sites are activated economically through the global tourism industry, involving public-private partnerships. Now, we've spoken about all this. These big corporations coming in and taking over. And UNESCO pushes visitor management systems and digital destination platforms, which is part of the broader Smart City, Smart Region model under Agenda 2030. It's been a very long-term plan because Tony Blair's government and obviously the Lisbon Treaty explicitly promoted a post-industrial model. Now, this is something I've been looking at for years, positioning the UK as a service and cultural hub within a globalised economy, and manufacturing that was destroyed in the 1980s by all those governments would be outsourced to low-cost regions, while Britain would profit from finance, education and tourism, all tightly integrated with supranational governance. And this is where this is all coming together in my head. So heritage and tourism become instruments of technocratic management and surveillance, not necessarily preservation, and certainly not spiritual pilgrimage. And it's been witnessed at Machu Picchu and Uluru. both WHS sites and other world sacred sites where Indigenous local people have been overlooked. So I was looking at this and thinking, well, the whole idea of the long-term idea of this plan of the SDGs is to actually reduce plane and car travel. So where does this fit in with tourism? And I suddenly, got a bit of an aha moment. And here we go. The next slide is virtual reality market size. And these are the biggest virtual reality sectors, that are coming through. And the next one is really how that can be monetized. And the fact that the market for virtual reality tourism is massive. And this is what we're looking at. So the next slide is, digital and virtual travel. Now, this comes from the UN World Tourist Organization. It says the use of technologies, including the Internet of Things, location-based services, artificial intelligence, augmented and virtual reality, they're bringing all of this in, and it's a way of keeping the carbon down. If you can sit at home and go somewhere in your virtual reality headset instead of actually getting on a plane, then it's a win for them. So this is sadly what we're looking at.
Sandi, thank you very much for that. Now let's move on and say, if you like what the UK column does, we do need your financial support, and we thank everybody that is giving us that at the moment. Thank you for being a member or making a donation. If you'd like to, if you have a look at the front page of the UK column website, there is a blue button there to press to find out the various options for helping us. If you can't help us out financially, then please do share material that you see on the UK column website, because that helps us defeat the censorship algorithm. Now, tonight, Jerm is talking to Quinton Jonk. The title of this is He Was Told He Would Die Within 4 years. And in fact, he went on to live for 20 so far and is still going strong. That's on Jerm Warfare tonight. So have a look at this at 7 o'clock if you can. And Dan, very, very briefly, please, the so-called banned books in libraries article is now up.
Yes, thanks, Mike. I just posted this morning. This is a version of the article that I posted in the Scottish Union for Education Substack a couple of weeks ago. There's some very important information here again about child safeguarding and what our children are being faced with in libraries today.
Okay, so that is up on the UK column website front page. Now, Reject Digital ID, Diane, 1st of November. You're speaking at this one?
Yes, I am. This is please join us on the 1st of November at the Monument in Newcastle. I will be there speaking along with Fiona Rose Diamond and someone from the Freedom Alliance. So please join us. It'll be a great day. Then why Scottish Education Matters? This is the conference for the Scottish Union for Education, which I will be attending as well. On the 15th of November, tickets are around £25 in Glasgow. Okay, thank you, Diane. Now, to get back on track here a little bit, we have a couple of video clips from the conference that we want to show, but we'll do that in extra from the conference that we held a week or so ago. But let's move on then. The question is history repeating itself, Ben?
It doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. Isn't that what they say?
That's what they say.
They do, yeah. Someone in the chat box a minute ago said, "Has the Civil War started yet?" And they're certainly trying for it. So this weekend up in London, there were a bunch of street protests. The Guardian presenting this as a rerun of the famous Battle of Cable Street from, I think it was 1936, where anti-fascists protested against Mosley's black shirts. And they're saying that history is repeating. Essentially what this is about is a UKIP protest, interestingly, not Tommy Robinson, it's UKIP. You can see there, haven't seen that in a while, actually, that purple flag.
Right.
Yeah, and but they're very much in the kind of, as you would expect, in the nationalist spirit, should I say, but not welcome in Whitechapel. It was seen as a provocation, so the march was diverted up to the West End and they walked down, I think this actually looks like New Oxford Street, and they walked down to Speaker's Corner. But you can see there, someone's holding a crucifix. You've got lots of Union Jacks, lots of, I don't know, well, they almost look like Templar flags, don't they? And there's certainly a lot of Christian iconography at play here, led by this chap, Nick Tencioni. who's been the leader of UKIP since February. So another splinter organisation to disunite the right wing of British politics, pretty much exactly the same as what's going on the left wing of British politics at the moment as well, with the Green Party and what Corbyn and Zara Sultana are up to. And then the response back over in Whitechapel was the local kind of Bangladeshi and Pakistani Muslim crowd community. I saw is mainly the men were out on the street, all blacked up and faces covered, and protecting their turf, essentially, right? And this is very much in the vein of this kind of slippery slope towards sectarianism that we appear to be being dragged down at the moment. And I don't think that this is heading in a particularly positive direction at all. But one of the things that jumped out at me in particular was this interaction now between one of the Stand Up to Racism anti-fascist protesters and some of these young men, these young Muslim men out on the streets of Whitechapel. Let's have a little look.
There's no need for that. We're on the same side, bro. No, we're not. Yes, we are, bro.
Do you hear that? We're on the same side, bro. No, we're not. Which puts quite an interesting spin on that, doesn't it? Because Stand Up to Racism are going up all around the country on a weekly basis. They were in Plymouth over the weekend. They're all around the UK, standing up for immigrant communities, standing up for refugees, facing down the anti-fascist, building this, United Colours of Benetton group of all different races and creeds, but actually it turns out that is a very shaky alliance. And I think that what these, for me, that's a really standout moment. And I think that needs deserve to be seen by a lot of people, particularly on the political left, right? Because actually what you think is happening is not actually what was happening. And it's entirely possible we're going to start to see some of these supposed alliances disintegrate, and then who knows what will happen.
The UKIP demonstrators, they're supposedly right-wing fascists.
Of course. Oh, yes.
They are there barefaced. You can see exactly who they are.
Exactly.
The left-wing protesters covered up, and we actually couldn't see who they were.
Always masked up. Yeah, absolutely. And then I look at all of those young, the young Bangladeshi men, and it's almost like they're in uniform. So you're saying black shirts, we're presenting this as the Battle of Cable Street. Okay, well, Mosley's fascists with the black shirts. Well, they're all there in black shirts. Like, what's actually going on there? Not quite as cut and dry as The Guardian certainly would have you believe.
Sandi, let's come back to you then, and sticking with the idea of protest, but this time over data centres.
Yes, the goodly people of Merseyside, their National Residents Association held an event on Saturday, and I was just really knocked out by how aware they were and how well they presented their case about these data centres, because without the data centres, digital ID cannot happen, really. So here's one of the banners from the event, It really tells you exactly what these data centres are all about. If I can have the next slide up. There's hundreds of these planned for the UK. They've got extreme power consumption, which is less power for the people. 1 megawatt is 24 hours power for 1,000 homes. They're a massive fire risk due to thermal runaway, which has happened, and these fires take hours and hours to put out. And the fire brigade are against these data centres as well, by the way. Generators and lithium battery storage, these are all toxic. Water is needed to cool them down. And it really what these data centres mean for us is that basically we lose out, and the digital ID marches on. So I just want you to if you could just listen to this this clip from the National Residents Association, which I must say I've done an interview with Cassie from the National Residents Association. Do look at it, very, very powerful. But let's have a look at this next clip from the Merseyside National Residents Association. Thank you.
Welcome, friends, concerned residents. Welcome to today's rally. Sefton Residents Association, part of the National Residents Association. And the rally for today is about the site which is proposed for a data centre just here, Bridle Road in Bootle. The aim of today's rally is to raise awareness amongst the local residents about the risks and impacts and the things that they can do to push back against this proposal. This proposal is in the planning stage at the moment, and we have every opportunity to push back and work back against the infrastructure that's been placed upon us as part of a surveillance society. Some background to National Residents Association. It was formed in 2022 by a group of concerned residents from around the UK. The aim was to create a national group which can protect our national and local communities. New members are always welcome from anywhere in the UK, and more associations that join, the more influence that we have. The National Residents Association is an umbrella organisation helping local groups to organise themselves.
Because Keir Starmer has given the British population the greatest chance in human history to change this world for the better. Inadvertently, albeit, but he doesn't know the opportunity that he has given us to unite behind one single cause, and that is the digital identity. I want to cover three things. I want to show you a vision of what his world will look like and his global partners. I want to show you how and who are putting this world together for us. And I want you to go away and research everything I say. Do not believe anything I say, but I will give you specific people who will tell you more detail and truth than I can. And thirdly, and most importantly, I want to give you solutions.
Well, there we go. People of Sefton really, really well informed, and yeah, the National Residents Association doing a great job there. Thank you.
Thanks, Sandy. Diane, let's come back to you then. And Durham Cathedral has been featuring Magna Carta.
Yeah, they've had a really great exhibition that has been on since July, and it ends on the 2nd of November. So, excuse me, I thought this would be a good time to talk about the exhibition, which I visited just over the weekend in case anyone wants to go in its final week. So this is officially the name of the exhibition is Magna Carta and the North. Durham Cathedral in particular has a lot of documents related to the Magna Carta, including early and original versions, which are not found everywhere. And they're only available every few years. So it's a really good chance to see what is available. Once you go into the exhibition space, you first see a whole lot of really beautiful historical items on display. So this is kind of just the sign that you see when you're first going into heading towards where the actual Magna Cartas are located. So I just want to go quickly through a few of these just for a little bit of visual enjoyment. There's some Roman stones here that are on available, for example. We also have a library. So of course, as UK Column's librarian, I had to mention the library. With the space that you walk through to get to the exhibition area was originally the dormitory of the monks that used to be part of Durham Cathedral, and it has now been what is called the new library since 1856. When you finally go into the exhibition space where there are only 15 people allowed in at a time, and there is an airlock to protect the documents that are available, there are some things related to basically the start of the Magna Carta and some of the political situations that led to what happened. So here's one, for example, that is, I just took this photo because I thought it was just a beautiful document, of course, called Polycratus, written by John of Salisbury around 1159. This version is from about 1400. And this document says, according to the exhibition, explored political authority, including what makes a good or a bad ruler, drawing on stories from the Bible of bad kings punished by God, and even suggests ways to deal with them. Quote, it is not only permitted, but it is also equitable and just to slay tyrants. Sorry, I'm confusing that. To slay tyrants. This text may have influenced the barons when they included a clause in the 1215 Articles, putting the king's affair under their scrutiny. So from there, we could go on to see why the North and Durham were so important to the Magna Carta. It was the barons who rebelled against King John in the North in 1215. They were from all across England, but most of them were from the North. And so they became known as the Northerners. And they were the ones rebelling against King John for some things that were going on at the time. And these articles of the barons that resulted from their work aimed at limiting the powers of King John and preventing unjust behavior, establishing that no one, not even the king, which is important in 2025, was above the law. These demands eventually became the document we know today as the Magna Carta. And Durham in particular was important because it was being so close to Scotland and so on, but also because of the northern location. It was strategically important for various reasons, and they sort of had some situations around outside of the direct authority of the crown, and they became very powerful for this situation geographically and politically and otherwise. So I've took a few photos, which I know we won't be able to read, but just to kind of understand what they look like, to go through very quickly. This is the original 1216 Magna Carta, and then from there we've got the 1217 Chamber of the Forest, which goes along with the Magna Carta. This was issued on behalf of King Henry III when he was 10 years old. The charter curbed the unbridled power of the monarchy over England's forest and reasserted the rights of the common people. Then there's the 1225 Magna Carta, which is available next. And then also we have the related 1225 Chamber of the Forest, which again extended the Magna Carta, as I said previously, in the updated version. This is from the exhibition from the preamble from the 1225 Magna Carta, with the great seal of the king saying, quote, "Know that we have of our own spontaneous goodwill given and granted to all of our realm these liberties written below to be held in our kingdom of England forever." And so this is known as the definitive Magna Carta, the 1225 version. It was the final version that, as it was issued under the king's seal, was on 28th of March 1300. And there are only a few examples of the 1300 version that survives. And Durham Cathedral's example is in almost perfect condition, apparently, according to the other ones that are still in survival, but is the 1225 version that is used as the definitive version in terms of what the text says. And so from there, we can see this was something that was displayed in Galilee Chapel, which is part of Durham Cathedral, sort of summarizing how this is still important to us today, saying that Magna Carta established the principle that everyone is subject to the law, even the king. It guarantees the rights of individuals, the right to justice, and to a free trial. And I went there with Tim Coulter from We the People Northeast, who has also contributed to UK Column. And so we talked about it a little bit standing there in Galilee Chapel. And he's a bit of an expert on this. So let's hear what he had to say about it.
This is Diane Rasmussen from UK Column. I'm here in Durham Cathedral this afternoon with Tim Coulter of We the People Northeast, as well as has been a recent contributor to UK Column as well. And we've just visited the Magna Carta and the North exhibition, which ends on the 2nd of November. What did you think of the exhibition, Tim?
Well, it was a great pleasure to come to this exhibition and actually finally see 3 different Magna Cartas. The 1216 Magna Carta, which was 1 year after the original Magna Carta, the 1225 and the 1300 Magna Carta. But it was a real thrill for me to actually come and see them, because I've got here one of my books. I got Magna Carta and to the Constitution of America, and the effect it's had on the common law constitutions of the world, which have been so badly affected during the COVID period.
Of course, right. So what do you think is the relevance of Magna Carta to today's world in 2025 and 2020 as well?
Well, I think it's got a massive relevance in all sorts of ways. Obviously, the Magna Carta is the basis of our many individual liberties, which are being so attacked at the moment. At the basis, of course, is the trial by jury, and the fact they're trying to diminish or get rid of trial by jury is extremely significant in the attempt for, you could say, new aristocracies to try and take over our general living and do away with the liberties of the individual.
And it seems to be something that we're seeing now with some of the things going on in the current government in this country.
Well, absolutely. I mean, King John, when 1215 Magna Carta, he put his seal to that, I believe, or he signed it. And of course, we're seeing now he was an authoritarian, and we're seeing a similar attacks on us now through authoritarian measures like the introduction of digital ID, taking away our individual liberties, which we fought for in the past and wish to retain.
Well, I hope you can join me this coming Saturday when I'll be speaking against digital ID at our rally up in Newcastle at the Monument. Thanks for joining me today, Tim. It's been a great afternoon. I appreciate your time.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Diane. Yes, that's excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I would encourage everyone, if you can, get up to Durham before Sunday, which is the last day of the exhibition, or to remind your local politicians and your national politicians and monarchs that nobody is above the law in this country.
Indeed. Thank you, Diane. Thank you. Nobody is above the law. We'll see what happens, particularly with the former Duke of York, and see whether he turns out to be above the law in the not too distant future. But look, on last Monday's program, Ben, last time we were on, I think we showed a little bit of video from Edge of the Matrix. With respect to trans activists.
Indeed, we did, yes. I think Sandi showed it, and it showed a chap called Steve, who was at our event up in York last weekend, being attacked in Liverpool. And it got quite a reaction, not least in the chat box, actually. And I wanted to just replay it and just put another spin on what we saw, actually, because this is a really important issue in terms of what's going on in the country. And let's just watch the clip again.
Well, I hope you fucking perish. Can someone call the police?
Be it suicide rate, weaponisation.
What the fuck is your
That is
problem?
assault.
You were making a mockery
That is absolute
of this entire
assault.
fucking country. You would make everything worse. What the fuck? Why are you doing this? My friend fucking died last year.
So the first thing to say is that woman should absolutely not have attacked him like that, right? And that was uncalled for, dangerous. If he got that stuff in his eyes, potentially could have caused him some serious problems.
What was that stuff?
That was like hot chili sauce, basically. Yeah. So, you know, I don't know if she's deliberately gone to find something that's going to cause him a problem, but, you know, she shouldn't be doing that, right? But also, and what I saw happen in the chat box last week was a lot of people come in, basically just start insulting her looks, and made a lot of assumptions about her based on what she did and what she was saying and all that kind of thing. But if you actually listen to what she said that, well, you're making a mockery. She used some expletives that I won't repeat. And she said, you're making everything worse. And then at the end, she said, I had someone die last year. And what you're looking at there is someone who's experienced some quite significant trauma, who's obviously got someone quite close to them who has died. Now, I don't know if they took their own life. I don't know anything about it, but it's clearly had an impact on her. And it sounds like it's related to this issue of transgenderism. And I think what people need to be cognizant of is that there are a lot of people in this country who are being physically, mentally, psychologically, spiritually abused by the system, by academia, by teachers, by people in healthcare, by people in the, you know, like psychologists. I mean, these ideas are absolutely everywhere, right? And they're in a bad way. And what they need from us is empathy and understanding. And I just wanted to replay that, to draw that out. Right, because it's very easy to demonize and point fingers and go on about how awful other people are. But even just in that clip, from what we've just heard, you can sense, you can tell, because she communicates it, there's something really quite traumatic has happened to her. And there's a lot more going on around that than that moment where she lost control and she carried out that attack. And that kind of interaction. We need to avoid that. But the issue that we're talking about here is absolutely going to be front and center over the next year or two as this issue gets dragged out into the public discourse on a more regular basis.
So stick with us on Extra, because I've got a couple of comments on this as well. So we're going to have a bit of discussion on it. We're also going to be talking about Magna Carta and so on. But Diane, let's just end then with a final thought.
Yeah, well, I thought that since Halloween is coming up this week, it was worth scaring everybody a little bit, or maybe trying to prevent some fear. So the New Jersey Department of Health has said that to scare COVID away, that getting the COVID vaccine is your best protection against COVID. Talk to your healthcare provider. So I'm not sure who's more scared of COVID or of the vaccine in 2025, Mike, but either way, obviously we should continue to be scared for sure.
For sure. That's definitely the message that is being encouraged. Okay, well, look, let's leave it there for today. Thank you very much, Diane, Sandi, and Ben, of course. We'll be back in a couple of minutes for some Extra. Don't forget Germ Warfare tonight. And we'll see you at, 1 o'clock tomorrow, actually, for another interview. And we'll be back for the news at 1 p.m. on Wednesday. See you then. Bye-bye.